Paltrocast.
Very nice to meet you. Great
Likewise.
show, by the way. Cheap
Oh,
Trick. Love it.
we'll come back to that after we talk about how great your new show is. How's that?
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
So, one of the things I like to find out about when I speak with showrunners is kind of where they came from, because these days, a lot of showrunners were stand up comics. Sometimes they were just producers and supervising producers. Sometimes they were failed actors, etc. Who and what is Barry L. Levy?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I mean, I have definitely worn my fair share of hats. I had when I was in undergrad, I wrote and directed a feature, got me to the Stark program at SC, and became a producer. Wound up as an executive in an animation studio, making kids television, where everyone either quit or got fired. And so over a 3-year period, put more than a dozen shows on the air and learned way too fast how to do way too many different skills, and kind of lost along the way what I wanted to do until I know this is the rambling thing. Oh my God, Sheila's
this is
not
the interesting stuff, Barry. I
so
mean,
she's wound up realizing I was no closer to writing, which is always my dream. So I wound up leaving the job. My boss was so appreciative for all the years of the hard work, gave me a consulting gig that allowed me to write a bunch of low budget direct-to-video horror movies. And then I wrote Vantage Point, and then was writing thrillers for 20 years, working on 1-hour dramas, ghostwriting, doing all of the various jobs that writers do. And as it was, I had a family. We had identical twin daughters and a son. And as they came of age, it was clear watching, kids' movies and kids' shows were not always my favorite task when there weren't things on multi-layers. When we saw E.T. again, it really inspired me. E.T., which I loved as a child, had no idea growing up that Elliot's father had run off with a flight attendant to Mexico. And I realized that there were so many layers there that were bringing in all sorts of audiences where they could feel real, emotional, grounded feelings while they were telling a larger story. So while that was going on, my son was larger than, he was tall, and my daughters were not, and they looked like triplets. And all of a sudden, people started to mistake him for one, and he had to figure out his own identity from a very early age. Who was he? Not who were they? And for him, that was a tough thing that became a bedtime story. Well, let's talk about a character named Ben who could be anyone. Who would you be? And that became the impetus of the show, about a boy named Ben who can be anyone in the world. Who does he want to be? And so for me, sort of writing outside the box, I had been producer of a half dozen independent films. I had been an executive. I have done the writing in TV and film. It was the logical sort of next step that I had the opportunity to sit down with Tara Sorensen at Apple and tell her that personal story, but also tell her that I wanted to build the Apple cinematic universe, not from comic books, but from a bunch of characters that we're going to watch grow up. And they'll be real and they'll be authentic, and their stories and themes will be important themes, such as with Ben, the questions of identity. And in a world where there are more identities than ever before for this generation. And so having said all of that, it became very clear that there was something sort of special here, and that we were off to the races from there.
So personal, yet layered, yet relatable.
I like that. Yeah, that sounds about right. What you said.
Well, another thing that's interesting to me about you, and I did know about your credits before that wonderful explanation, is at some point in your career you went from B. Lewis to Barry L. Was that a conscious decision? Was that like, okay, the horror people know me as B. Lewis, the family-friendly stuff, Barry L.
Okay, so I love that you just brought that one up. B. Lewis was actually me as a beard for someone else who had written a horror movie that is so unwatchably bad that I, to this day, tried to get my name off of it, and they will not let me let go, even though I did not write that. I did write my fair share of direct-to-video horror, but that wasn't one of them.
So that was your Alan Smithy moment.
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Well, it's
fantastic you brought that up. That's awesome.
Yeah. Let's face it, IMDb never it never goes away once it's there, for better and for worse. But it's great to hear that you've got this career where you not only stuck with it, but you learned how to actually do all the stuff. Because I can't tell you how many directors or showrunners never directed, don't know how to use the equipment and all that. So you're one of those actual paying your dues kind of people.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think I did pay my dues up front. I mean, I sort of fell into a job where no one else could survive, and that sort of got me a head start. But along the way, I sort of had to pay my dues as I went, for sure. And there was something also coming from a graduate program focused on producing, of learning how to sort of learn the ropes from the start. All the sort of technical aspects, as well as the sort of how do you move through this town.
Got it. This show, did you know outright that you didn't just want to create, that you also want to show run? Because a lot of times people go, if I create it, someone else show runs, and I could work on creating my own thing at the same time and have two shows going.
Yeah, no, because this show was always a love letter to my kids. This was so important to me to, I mean, I was turning down other opportunities because I wanted to make sure that I could be here to do this. I mean, my daughters are about to start their senior year in high school. So I was worried we would miss that sort of moment of being able to do this together. And so that was what was important for me.
Got it. So is this the latest thing you worked on? Are there other things in the pipeline that we'll be seeing in the near future?
There are a couple other things that, knock wood, you'll be seeing in the future, but certainly that, you know, I've worked on simultaneously, and then since as well. There's a movie based on a Korean language format, The Terror Live, that I adapted, that we're hopefully getting our production financing in the next few weeks. I'm developing for TV the Harrison Ford action comedy Hollywood Homicide as a 1 hour.
Oh,
Yeah, so
wow.
yeah, both of them are more sort of what I've traditionally done. But like I said, this was always going to be this sort of open letter, you know, to Noah, Ben, and Jordan. So
Yeah, so you were incredibly hard to pigeonhole. We can't just go, oh, it's a Barry Levy joint, therefore it's horror. Therefore,
yeah.
we don't know if it's going to be TV, film, which genre, or how many minutes it's going to be.
Yeah, that's what you tell young writers not to do. But I think, yeah, that's also true. But no, I've been really fortunate to have had the multiple opportunities in multiple different arenas, and you do learn along the way a lot of humility, but you also learn, if you're smart, you learn skill sets that can translate.
Well said. So going back to the beginning of the conversation, you ever seen Cheap Trick live?
I did not, but my kids also know that Surrender is a song you don't mess with. It's just pure. It's awesome.
Harder to sing than you'd realize. I bet if you're playing Rock Band or one of those, you go, I like that song, but like the national anthem, it's just, it goes higher than you think it's going to go.
Right. But let's be clear. When you're tone deaf, they're all hard to sing.
Are you a secret rock and roll guy?
Not really. I mean, I definitely wanted to make sure that music was an influence here, because it was sort of a shared language of multi-generations. And, you know, had we had our druthers, I think there's probably more songs we would have layered in as well. You know, as a rock and roll nerd, I mean, I was thrilled that at one point we were contemplating Beastie Boys, and we had one of their songs ready to go. And to Michael Dowse's credit, for a lot of different reasons, to his credit, but he sort of talked me down of going what we needed in the moment and what was going to be distracting. And while it was a sort of a dream of mine, maybe wasn't the right thing for Ben. So
Are you allowed to say which Beastie Boys song almost got used?
you know what? I'm sure I'm allowed to, but to be honest with you, there were 2 or 3 that we circled. The one that we probably landed on was Jimmy James.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But there was a few others that were circled at various points. But it was sort of important because we're trying to track generations. And so you have Cat Stevens, you have, you know, Don Henley, and you had some other sort of newer music as well. But we wanted to sort of capture, you know, trying to find Ben's voice meant also trying to find what spoke to him in the realm of music. And this was something that probably was too broad of a swing. But oh man, it was so influential to me as a person that I wanted to honor it.
The 3 artists you just happened to name are all notoriously hard to license.
So one of the things about writing your love letter to your kids that is you're super passionate about is you write passionate letters to performers
Oh,
who who were thrilled. And I sent them the scripts and I explained why it was so important and meaningful. And we had, I mean, to their credit, to their ever-loving credit, I mean, they were all generous of purpose. No one made it difficult at all. And I was so grateful.
Got it. Well, one last me question, one last Barry question, then I'll let you go. And the me question is, who's the first person that was attached to it from a cast? Because usually there's one person that comes on board and then people go, oh, they're there? I'm there too.
So the casting director is Joshua Einson, who had done This Is Us. He had done a bunch of other bigger shows, and he and I go way back. And he sort of, and I talked at length about trying to find a performer, you know, for Max and Ben, almost as a 1 and 1A, not like a 1 and a 2. And once we knew that we wanted River, we really were looking at a Max that could not just hold her own up against him, but also embrace him. Like, who was the sister that he needed to have? And Abby just had such incredible range that both of them together, it was like, this is too obvious. Let's not screw this up. It has to be them. And then Amanda Reed was third on that list, but Amanda, interestingly enough, was the first one that Josh had ever seen, and he had seen her months before we started casting, and he just knew she was Carter, and we should just stop questioning. And it was that simple. So.
Got it. And the last question, ending on a stupid note here, I like to find out when people have the same name as somebody else, if they've ever met. Do you have any interactions, history, or photos with the reggae artist Barrington Levy?
Not only do I not have anything with him, there's a Barry W. Levy who had been on the X-Files and is a character actor. Nothing with him. And there's apparently an author in Santa Monica, Barry L. Levy, as well. And I have only received references to all of them and never met any of them. I don't think they exist. How about that?
Okay, follow-up question. Has any mail for Barry Levinson accidentally come to you?
No, but when I used to be an executive, whenever I called CAA, because he was a big client there, I always got my calls in before my boss did, because they all heard me say fast, Barry Levy as opposed to Barry Levinson, and then they just put him right through.
Awesome. I'm not going to top that. Barry, thank you for your time. Congrats on the show, and looking forward to what's to come from you.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Be well.
Paltrocast.